Podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan. Hey, everybody. We are back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver, and we're here to bring you more knowledge, more light, and more love. Today, people, we're going into a subject we have never delved into before, at least in depth. Mary, Mother of Jesus, the Mary archetype. What is that energy, that goddess energy? We're going to talk about that with Marguerite Mary Rigoglioso. She wrote an incredible new book, The Secret Life of Mother Mary, Divine Feminine Power for Personal Healing and Planetary Awakening. Whoa, you know this is going to be a good one. We're going to talk about all of these things in just a second, but first, I need you to do something for me. Follow me on Instagram at midnight_on_earth. That is the address. You can follow me there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you go to get your podcasts. Click that button that connects us so you know exactly what is going on when people come on with this powerful information, really good information. You get that notification instantly to wherever you get it. And lastly, tell a friend, tell someone that you know that loves these type of podcasts. You know what we're doing here. You know the energy, the information, the frequency. And you know people that need that frequency or match that frequency. Bring us together. midnightonearth.com. Okay, so we're almost going to talk to Marguerite, but we have to read her bio just like everyone else. We need to know who she is. So here we go. Marguerite Mary Rigoglioso, PhD, is the founder of Seven Sisters Mystery School, a world-renowned teacher of sacred knowledge, and the foremost authority on the history of virgin birth. A trusted mentor to people on healing and spiritual paths, she draws on her decades-long research and experiences with Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene to help uncover their hidden, timeless teachings and apply them to our present-day needs. The award-winning author of several books, including The Secret Life of Mother Mary, Divine Feminine Power for Personal Healing and Planetary Awakening, and the mystery tradition of miraculous conception, Mary and the lineage of virgin births. And there's others, of course. She lives in Western Massachusetts, and she's here with us today. Hello, Marguerite.
Hi, Jake. Woo, I can feel the excitement.
It's a big topic. It's big energy. The goddess energy itself, it's love. But in Western culture, and as you point out in your book, in several cultures throughout the world, there is this goddess type figure we know as Mary, Mother of Jesus, and of course the other Mary, Mary Magdalene. It's a feminine goddess type energy. How would you describe this energy?
Yeah. Mother Mary is just one manifestation of this humongous goddess who has so many aspects. As mother, as fierce protector, as sensual partner, as world server, as human healer, as human spiritual teacher, right? That kind of thing. And this is talking about, a universal divine energy that is feminine, the feminine side of God. And what we know about Mother Mary is that she's one of those interesting people who walked the planet who was able to have her final ascension. And I don't know if the word ascension is, something that's bandied about your communities or maybe some of your other guests, but whatever it is, she actually did it, which means that at the end of her life, she was able to merge fully with this divine feminine essence and energy that we're talking about and be that, but also kind of dial down into her Mary persona so that people can access her more readily. That's the short story of who Mother Mary is.
So we're talking about, of course, Mary, the mother of Jesus, who I totally believe is real. Some people think it's like a metaphor or some other symbolism, but in fact, Jesus was a real person. And what you propose and what you show us in your book is actually very startling, because Mary, in addition to being you could say, fully realized human being, someone who broke the cycle of death and rebirth by integrating all of the knowledge and then ascending to that goddesshood, she also was carrying a lineage herself that she was a part of and then imparted into the Jesus frequency. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I know. This is the revolutionary thing about the book. It draws on all of these available texts, but that have been suppressed, as well as scholarship that's been out there for decades, to finally lift the veil in a really accessible way on this woman turned goddess, to show that she wasn't this passive vehicle to the advent of Jesus and didn't even know what was going on with that, really. And rather to look at all of these pieces of evidence that show that she was a lineage holder of the divine conception process. Her mother Anne did it before her. And how we know that is because in the infancy gospel of James, we're shown that Anne divinely gave birth to Mother Mary, parthenogenesis, okay? They're in the same lineage as the biblical Sarah, who conceived Isaac in this way. They're in the same lineage as Elizabeth, who conceived John the Baptist this way, Jesus' cousin, so to speak. So this is just a small glimpse of this priestesshood that existed all over the planet, probably for thousands of years.
Wow, that's so huge, because what you talk about in your book, and people, you should definitely get it. We're going to talk about a lot of things, but this book is just unbelievable, is that they were able to harness energy in such a way and train and kind of utilize energy to create a conception, a birth, dialing in and creating the energetic structure and then taking it on in a material sense to create these avatars of consciousness. That was mind-blowing for me.
Well, yes. What I am basing my understanding of Mother Mary and all of these women that I just mentioned on is a larger body of research that I did for my dissertation at the California Institute of Integral Studies on virgin birth in ancient Greece and the ancient Mediterranean world.
Right.
So I knew from these mountain loads of books that I had and these things that I'd written, how this process worked and the various ways that the priestesses would do it and what it involved, so that when I started reading the manuscripts about Mother Mary, I knew immediately what was going on, that she was part of these same lineages. And these are technicians of a high-level priestess yoga, you might call it. Yoga in the sense of a philosophy that weaves things together, right? And so she was working with the light and matter interface. She was working with the soul and DNA interface. She was working with the sound frequency, vibration. She was working with the angelic realms during this. She may well have been working with sacred medicines in order to get into the requisite open state. And she had been trained in this since infancy.
Right. And also the virgin birth concept itself shows up prehistory. It's part of Egyptian culture. It's a part of other religious structures throughout the world.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that I found out when I started researching this, back in the early 2000s. Yeah, the Egyptian queens were said to give birth to the next pharaoh in a form of divine birth. We can talk about, there are different forms of it. Plato, Pythagoras, and Alexander the Great were said to have been conceived this way. Those are just historical figures. Wow. Then there are legendary figures like Theseus, Perseus, okay, and others. So even one of the August Caesar, the Caesars, Augustus Caesar was said to have been conceived in this way. So this is talking about something that's been going on from way back in antiquity, beyond just the West. But that's where we have a lot of the records, way back and going into Greek times, Roman times, and even, more modern times, because in the Native American traditions, we have these stories. One of them is that, for example, the Cherokee people and the Haudenosaunee, the Iroquois people, have the story of their peacemaker who was divinely conceived by Gahetasuk. All right, they're the mother. So this is something that once you start peeling off the layers, you realize this is a whole suppressed body of knowledge and a whole suppressed history that we absolutely need to know about. And it really is the only way that allows thinking people, intelligent people, to make sense of the claim that Mary gave a divine birth to Jesus. Suddenly it all pops into understanding for us.
Yes, and to me, it seems like that must have been a huge clue for you when you were taking the deep dive and doing the research into all of this, seeing that virgin birth aspect showing up everywhere, but then applying to these lineages as well, and then realizing that Mary must have been a part of these lineages. And then, of course, all the clues and all the evidence began to show itself.
That's right, Jake. It was a really exhilarating process, and it was intense. When I was writing the first material about this in the early 2000s, I literally would have to lie down on my rug sometimes during this research process, because the sense of the energy and the implications were so enormous that it was like conducting this tremendous energy through my body, and I had to breathe. And luckily at that time, my partner at the time was somebody who not only could understand this, what I was saying, what I was doing, but he aided and abetted it, because he was a medicine man too. He was a traverser, a journeyer of the other realms of consciousness. And so I felt held and supported, which was very, very helpful.
I'm sure. And then coincidentally, of course, everything happens for a reason that was all divinely guided, you could say, to have that support right when you needed it as you were processing these really powerful energies. Because spiritual people talk about this, when you're tapping into these energies that are bigger than human and they affect millions and billions of humans and who knows who else throughout the universe, it's a lot for our material selves to process. It can make us tired. It can make us sleepy and hungry and all of these different things, because there is an energy exchange that's happening when you're having these massive downloads.
That's right. And you're right. It is beyond just the human plane. It absolutely is connecting in with the inner dimensions of reality, the angels, the beings that we might call ETs, even the Pleiades is connected with this. Because what did I find out in this research about ancient Greece? The 7 sisters of the Pleiades, who are the 7 starseed mothers of humanity, came to Earth and through their own divine birth process started lineages on the planet. That's how off planet it goes. And it's probably, even more intense than that. I mean, Isis in the Egyptian tradition was able to give a kind of divine conception to Horus. And that would connect her in with the pharaonic lines and how all of that was being created in ancient Egypt.
Interesting. And doesn't the Big Dipper correlate as well with the Pleiadian situation?
It can be seen as related. But, the Pleiades are their own star asterism. If you look at Orion's belt and you go all the way up to the right, you'll see the little smudge of the Pleiades. Where it's located is in the nape of Taurus, the bull. But when you look at the placement of the 7 brightest stars, it can be seen to mirror, in a way, the Dipper. So it's like mysteries nestled within mysteries.
And that's the fun part of the human experience. I know it can be compelling and, as you said, very draining in certain situations. It's also like, wow, we're unlocking these mysteries. And each time we open this treasure chest of knowledge, it impacts humanity as a whole. It adds to our collective understanding, which then adds to our ascension process.
That's right. It adds to our awakening. It adds to our healing. It adds to our love ability, our ability to love and be loved, which is the ascension vehicle, essentially.
Right.
And so we can really do a tremendous amount of healing, personal healing through this road as well.
Well, you talk about how Mother Mary and even Mary Magdalene, and just that energy is assisting humanity in integrating this new 5D consciousness with our other levels of awareness. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I talk about that in The Secret Life of Mother Mary, how Mother Mary was a mentor to all of those apostles and disciples and everybody who followed around Jesus and so forth, including Mary Magdalene. And so I really expose her as this teacher, this great grand teacher. And that's not just a historical moment in time. That extends to the now, because her teachings are still there if we want to tap into her. She's available. She's, a very great being. She's there for personal mothering. I talk about my own experiences with personal mother healing, experiences that have gone on until like 3 weeks ago when I had a major medicine ceremony and encountered Mother Mary, and she did a massive healing on me. Okay. So, Mary Magdalene has been part of this movement, and she's the one who kind of went first. She's been the one who's been uncloaked for like the last 40 years through channel material, through historical writings, through things like the Da Vinci Code and so forth. So we've had this awakening to, oh, Mary Magdalene wasn't the one who was a sinful prostitute. She's not at all the way she's been portrayed. No. Let's turn that around, and then let's start working with her. And now this is the unveiling, the grand unveiling of Mother Mary. And then we're also starting to realize through what I say in the book, how the two Marys worked together. They were always around Jesus with, get this, a third Mary.
Right.
Who was, Mother Mary's sister.
The sister, yes, as you talk about in your book, which is
so that's
so
talking
huge.
About that this Mary name, right, is a title. It's a priestess title. It's not really a personal name. At least it wasn't back in the day.
Interesting. Wow, that's so huge. But then 2 questions. One, can you tell us the difference for people that are still kind of grasping this, the energetic differences between Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene? And then also, why were those goddess energies suppressed? It seems like jealousy, bitterness, envy. I'm sure there's a whole slew of human emotions and control mechanisms behind it. But why? What were we so afraid of?
That's right. Okay. So Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, really, they are both emanations of what I would call the great goddess Sophia.
Okay.
They just have kind of different personality angles along with that. Mary Magdalene is more the tantric type of priestess in that lineage, and Mother Mary is more the virgin priestess in that lineage of divine conception, you see? So Mother Mary knew how to divinely conceive through achieving supreme sovereignty or androgyny within herself. She conceived the avatar, the great holy being who would help humanity. And then Mary Magdalene, according to the research and what I believe about that research, is that she then unified with Jesus as a partner, as a spouse, if you will, and then they engaged in a certain kind of tantric energy, and then had a lineage that they created. Now, we know in France that there's at least one child, and she's called Sarah La Kali, and she is thought to be the child of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. There are other channelings by other people like Claire Hartsong and even the late Hindu saint Sri Kaleshwar that they had other children, they had a number of children, and that this DNA, went out into the world in the way that it happens when people start marrying and having their own children and reuniting. Okay. So, but Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary was a mentor to Mary Magdalene. Okay. And Mary Magdalene had her own smarts and knowledge. So I think they were like any two great minds. They were always helping each other. They were always inspiring and sparking each other. Mother Mary then would have been the mother-in-law of Mary Magdalene. So once I talk about all these things in The Secret Life of Mother Mary and go into them in more depth. But once you start realizing that, it's like your mind suddenly turns right side up.
Right, of
it's
course.
Like it's been upside down for all this time. And now, oh my gosh, of course, why didn't we think of this before? So I'll tell you, because you were talking about why has this been suppressed? Well, let's just, first of all, whistleblowers and oracles have been telling us why this has been suppressed for a very long time, that there are friendly interdimensional forces and angelics that work with us, and like the sacred family and so forth. And then there are unfriendly forces. And if you want to get a little bit more detail on that, just get the huge book called The Gnostic Bible by Willis Barnstone and Marvin Meyer and start reading through those Gnostic Gospels. Those are the suppressed texts that were hidden away in Nag Hammadi, thank goodness, that tell us what was really being thought and said and what was really going on. And it tells us the story of these negative influences on planet Earth, on humans, to sort of enslave us and hijack us, turn us against each other, turn men against women and people against animals and, everyone, cultures against each other. And this sort of morphed into what we might call patriarchy, but it's not really that men are the problem. It's that hijacked men become the problem. Okay.
Absolutely.
As do hijacked women. And all sorts of these things have been going on probably for thousands of years. And when you read into the Gnostic Gospels that Jesus and the Marys came precisely to address this.
Right. They needed to balance out the frequencies. They were anchoring a new vibration that would eventually lead to the new earth.
That would lead to the new earth, which is basically our origin, our original form is angelic. And it's the Sophianic light, Christos light within. So they were trying to awaken us. That's why Jesus' statements in the Gnostic Gospels are all, the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Right.
Everything I'm doing, you will do and more. This is all about turning on the light within you that you already are. This is about releasing the shackles of your mind and focusing your mind and co-creating, like you're saying, what we want to create, the new Eden.
Because we have that power as humans. I mean, that is the Christ consciousness. And you're saying in your book that the Christ consciousness and that Mary goddess energy, it's almost one in the same, almost a masculine version of the Mary frequency. What do you think about that?
It is. The Christ Sophia is like one being. That is, you could call it the Sophia, whatever you want to call it. You could call it the yin yang. You could call it the Shiva Shakti, right? But it is part of that wholeness of the universe that is a wholeness within ourselves that we just need to reactivate through various practices and processes. It ain't easy.
No.
Because first stages have to do with your own pedestrian personal healing from your family trauma. Not fun, but a deep part of the spiritual path. And that's why these Marys and Jesus are around here for us.
So would you say then that Mary energy is not only throughout the universe, but it's almost archetypal in nature, that it's a frequency that's woven into the fabric of reality that's always there for us?
Absolutely. And all we're doing is pulling off the veil to that realization so that you can access that energy, be it through your meditations, be it through your inner child healing, be it through sacred medicine experiences where you invoke these beings, be it in a group prayer or chant situation, whatever it is, many, many ways.
And there are ways to access that energy instantly. It seems like it's really just about tuning in.
It so is. We could do it right now. I mean, anyone listening can just be tuning in. Mother Mary, I want to feel you. I want to know more about you. I would love to receive your help. Or, Yeshua, Jesus, same thing, right? Or Mary Magdalene, same thing. Or really anyone in the sacred family. They're just one representation of a grouping of beings that are here to help us. Yeah. They exist in other cultures. They have existed in other times. This is not about the re-Christianizing of the world. This is not about come to Jesus, everybody, and everything's going to be fine. And oh, by the way, you have to look at Jesus in this particular way that we say you have to look at it. No, that's not what this is about. This is about accessing this perennial well of nourishment, of healing, that is really within ourselves.
And that, like you said, has been blocked, has been diminished. We've been programmed as humans to ignore it, fictionalize it, make it external. But you're trying to bring that programming back. You're trying to help people understand, no, it's right there. It's meant for us. It loves us. It's the goddess. It's the creator. It's all of it, but it's coming through that conduit.
That's right. And Jake, I just finished 3 days of very intensive one-on-one conversations with women who are thinking about enrolling in my Mary and Magdalene priestess training, which starts September 10th. And the stories that I have been privileged to hear, it's unbelievable. Because, I have some friends and things like that, and I've had my own experiences, but you kind of feel like you're a little bit in your own world with Mother Mary. And then sometimes you're like, okay, this is real, right? All of these stories of how Mary has appeared to these people, either through just a knowing or a visitation or a synchronicity, a series of synchronicities, or some of these people grew up Christian or Catholic, some did not. And, one woman had this experience where she saw this light being at the bottom of her bed. It's identical with like what the children saw at Fatima, what Bernadette Subaru saw at Lourdes, right? And she wasn't even brought up Catholic, but all she could pin it on it was like, okay, this must be Mother Mary. Well, that's just because Mother Mary is of that same valence. So whoever you want to call this being, you can call on her.
Right. It's morally cultural and what you've been exposed to, whatever form was kind of imprinted on you as a youth or at some point in your life. That's your access point, and that's okay. It's just like people with Jesus, that Christ consciousness, that Buddha nature, Krishna consciousness, it shows up everywhere. But for Americans, for the West, it seems like that's where a lot of people send that energy through that Jesus circuit, you could say.
That's right. So it's really a good circuit, thank goodness, as many problems as this particular religion has caused. And there are big ones because it was hijacked like anything else.
Absolutely.
Still access the essential essence of what's in there and what it's all about, right? If you get rid of all the dogma, all of the distortions, it's all still there. And so it is a very good conduit for people to do this healing and awakening by.
Oh, yes. And I've noticed with spiritual people, Jesus, Yeshua, he shows up everywhere. People's deepest meditations, they could have belief structures in various different places, but seemingly Jesus shows up in all of these different places. And that, to me, indicates that there's just a presence and energy, truly that Christ consciousness that just takes on that form for those people at that time. And one really interesting thing that you point out in your book, which was super profound, was that Jesus appears differently to different people depending on their level of consciousness, just like Mary. Like we can see it one way, but as we grow, as we expand, as we learn, we develop ourselves more, we can interface with that energy again. And wow, there's a lot more information there.
Yeah. And Jake, this is the great adage that is in the Gospel of Philip. That's what you're referring to. And I quoted it. Yeah. Whatever level we are at is how we see these beings And how we see these beings reflects whatever level we are at. So you can start either raising your own vibration or raising the way in which you see these beings. And both of these things are going to rise for you. So what I'm trying to do in this book is raise Mother Mary way up here so that people can be like, oh my gosh, this is what's possible for a sacred woman on the planet. We have to be able to see them in these bigger ways. And as we go into the deeper and deeper dimensions, I had heard that even the Kabbalah was written such that when you get to successive levels of initiation, you start seeing it in a whole new way, a whole new set of terma or, sacred jewels and teachings come to you based on where you are. So that's why you want to keep revisiting and revisiting and revisiting.
Right. Wow. That's so huge. And tell me more about Jesus's physical children. Now, Mother Mary, as you talked about, took on this energy in a way that you describe in the book that is just so amazing. But she takes on this energy, she compiles it, with her mind power. It's a lot to process. She brings this physical being into the world who finds love with Mary Magdalene. They're in love with each other. They're having relations that are probably pleasurable to them both. And then they have children. And I've heard this called the Merovingian bloodline, but there's that DNA. Is the Merovingian bloodline real? And then what is the difference in the DNA that affected us so much?
Right. So there are those legends in France that Mary Magdalene, after the crucifixion and resurrection, went to France with Sarah La Callie, who is believed to be her child with Jesus, as well as Joseph of Arimathea and some other people were in this boat, and that she lived a life out in France, ultimately in the caves, doing her ascension practices and so forth. Now, there's another timeline, again, that Sri Kaleshwar of India talks about, and I believe probably also Claire Hartsong, although I haven't delved deeply into her books, Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, and Anna, Voice of the Magdalens, but I think she thinks that they had number of children. The Kaleshwar timeline is that Jesus was resurrected by Mother Mary physically, which is in my book, The Secret Life of Mother Mary, that description. And then Jesus physically went to India, where he was with sages, that Mary Magdalene and some of the other apostles joined him there, that they then had a life there, that they had other children, unnamed. And so Kaleshwar says something that is very controversial as well, that Mary Magdalene was not the only woman who gave birth to his children.
Wow. Interesting.
So that's something to think of. Okay. So now, whatever the case may be, there's a legend in France that these early kings of France, the Merovingian line, really did come out of these children from this marriage or this partnership. I don't know. It's a controversial claim, right? There are the adherents to this. There are the detractors. There are the debunkers. This and that. But what I get, there's my research self and there's my intuitive oracle self. What I get is that, well, yes, all avatars want to leave their children on the planet so that their higher level DNA can cycle through the human race. That's how the 7 sisters of the Pleiades, the 7 star mothers of the world, did it. And that's how, there have been other advents of beings to the planet to help raise back up the vibration of humanity. So I do feel that this energy of the Jesus and Magdalene DNA has gone through a certain amount of the human family, and that it may be that it's reached a critical number of people, which is why we're having the second coming now. The second coming being the coming within ourselves, right?
Right. Yes. The activation of that.
Yeah, enough people have been born with their DNA such that that string can be plucked and many people can start awakening to this possibility. All right. So let's, think about that.
That's
I'm just
huge.
offering that to people.
That's just huge. I mean, it's just really shows this process that's so massive, the DNA influence through these ethereal beings and their work and service continues humanity's evolution in a physical sense. It's just, the implications are just so huge. However, it's very positive because what you're saying is the DNA's out there, that Christ consciousness strain of DNA, whatever was injected into humanity is there enough that we can make it. We can do it. We can tap in to what Jesus talked about when he said, if I can do it, you can do it. And all of those wonderful things that he was showing us, that we're just all one and we have this power, that now is the time. And you talked about that in your book, how you feel like now is the time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some critical timing to what's happening here. It's miraculous. It's wondrous. And even as the world is facing all these scary events and cataclysms and manipulations, maybe, and I mean, crazy things to really bring people to the edge. And by the way, have you noticed that most people are in some crisis or another? That's because we're going through the sieve now. We're going through the transition of the dimensions, and you can't take with you the old stuff.
Right.
You can't take with you the unhealed business. You've got to go into this deep healing. And that's why these beings are not here to abandon us at the moment of our need of healing. They're like, yes, we know we are here for this healing. We will hold you. We will enwhole you. And then we are awakening you at the same time.
Yes, the support we have is absolutely incredible. It's on every dimension, in every way. There are forces, like you said, that are trying to stifle that, slow it. I'm not sure, but it seems pretty much like a futile effort. Like it's unstoppable. The evolution, the unfoldment of humanity, maybe there'll be twists and turns, but the end result is almost predestined in a way.
I think so. It feels like an inexorable movement into greater awakening.
Yes.
And everything that has been tried has failed to keep us down. In fact, because we are in duality, the opposite gets utilized, the opposite of what they're trying to do. So there's the negative of what they're doing. We're able to utilize the opposite and turn the ship around yet more. That's what's happening.
Yes, and it seems like based on the prophecies of people like the Hopi that we've evolved into a place where we can go to a place where humanity's never been before. The Hopi believe that we've gone through these cycles of destruction, rebirth, but it's a spiraling cycle upward. And perhaps now we're at a point where if we choose, if we dial it in, which again, it's almost inevitable, that we can go somewhere very new to us, perhaps in our far ancient history, but newer to the human consciousness than it has for a super long time.
Yeah, because it'll be a new rung of the Edenic spiral, because nothing repeats itself in creation. It's a fractal of continual unfoldment. And so, yes, we're on a new part of this ancient future journey.
It's amazing. It's mind-blowing. And I love the fact that we have so much help. The star seeds, the angels, everyone's on our team. And do you feel like that the Pleiadean starseed aspect, those races, that energy over there played some role in these lineages with Mother Mary? Is it going back all the way to those original lineages like you were talking about?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
And I started discerning this a long time ago. And it's a little bit more in my first two books, the Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity and the Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece, especially that one, where I talk at length about the Pleiades and their relation to planet Earth and their symbolism of they're seen as the doves because that's how we envision these white lady angelic beings that seem to have wings. Their symbolism as the doves is seen again in Mother Mary and in the Jesus tradition. And Mother Mary is referred to almost as a dove which means as a Pleiad, and what I've channeled is that there were 7 sisters of the Pleiades who gave certain amounts of their DNA, and that Mother Mary is the 8th sister of the Pleiades, who is giving us Jesus. Okay, so like everybody just fall down with that one. And the person who's really helping me to bring this out in a big way, who's keyed into my work, is William Henry.
Oh, I love William Henry. I just met him recently for the first time.
All right. He has really understood what I'm saying. And then he adds, this whole other dimensionality, like, yes, Mother Mary was a Pleiadian star walker. There's no problem here, because they're all kind of related. They're all working the same gig, which is to help humanity. So we can call them Pleiades. We can call them the sacred family. We can call them the Marys. We can call them the fairies. We can call them the angelics. All of this is related. And we're starting to weave and put together this material, which, I do in the Secret Life of Mother Mary. I talk about the fairies. I talk about the unicorns. I talk about the Marys, how they're all related. And I'm doing that even more and more, again, with this priestess training, where people are going to be having this lived experience of doing what the Marys do best, which is to weave, which means weaving concepts, weaving what was torn asunder, weaving new space-time realities.
And is there something about that energy, that the weaving that has a foundation of compassion and almost forgiveness for all of the transgressions that light beings throughout the universe have done, all the things that were considered low frequency behavior? These energies are clearing that up in order to help us?
Yes. I mean, that is the critical point, and very astute of you, because this process is not just a mystery school intellectual, let's all go get high and da-da-da. It is love. Love has to be the key ingredient. Something that I recently received in an oracle state was that our Merkaba light body, in terms of like the ancient idea of the Merkaba, the light body, in order to be that transmission vehicle between this dimension and others, and our ticket to the next dimension after we leave our body, it has to contain not only light, but what? Love. And then I would add wisdom or discernment. And this is what the Mary priestess title is all about. Love, wisdom, often womb wisdom, discernment, and light. Okay? So yes, love is a critical component, and it's the easiest thing in the world and the hardest thing in the world to do, receive, achieve, be in, etc., because there are so many forces that want to pit us into resentment and anger, fear, loathing, terror, all of that we've gone through, and we're programmed to respond in that way instead of toward the love aspect. And so part of the healing is the self-love is the first number one thing that we need to do. And the Marys and Yeshua are here for that, to help us with that. And then we are able to have larger and larger levels of love for others until we can actually love and forgive these other beings who have caused so many problems in our lives, on our planet, and so forth.
Oh, wow. That's so huge, because Jesus talks about, whether you're religious or not, he still talks about loving your enemies. And you hear these spiritual people all talk about banishing people to different timelines that didn't make the right choices, and the people that did make the right choices get to go to this timeline. But how are we loving our enemy if we're not integrating the shadow of humanity? If we're all one being, we have to integrate everyone. It's all of us or none of us, really. And we have to heal, forgive, and tune those people back to our frequency.
Jake, you're talking my language. These are the types of things that we realize, right, after years of working in this,
yes,
in this clay, right? And we're like, oh my gosh. And years of humbling and years of division. The last 4 years were an excursion into division, into like giving up on certain people and family members and this and that. And they're the devil. And oh, they're the devil. No, they're the devil. It's like, well, okay. We have to come back to our senses, literally come back to our senses and just say, wait a minute, what is the loving response here? Right?
Right.
Sometimes the loving response is talking, sometimes it's silence, sometimes it's just being present, sometimes it's giving an ear, sometimes it's doing a silent transmission, sometimes it's just being patient. And and this goes all the way up the food chain to, again, the beings who we would consider satanic, demonic, whatever. Okay. And
that's so huge. This is a huge point. Go ahead.
Yeah, because the Sophia Christ holds it all.
Right.
And so it's about that yin yang. It's about like being in this tensile kind of oneness that is allowing for the opposites. It might not even be, let's just transmute them all into light. It might be, there might be something else going on there where they actually have to and get to exist. But through our own sleights of hand and our own understandings and our own managing of this, we don't get into the clashing warfare. We're the ones who are driving it. We're the ones who are driving it through love.
Right. And we're honestly anchoring a vibration. We're anchoring that new earth energy. When we dial into love and we integrate it in that way, as much as we can as humans, we're making it happen. And people talk about how important all of this is in personal development and how we need to raise people's frequencies and all of that. Well, that's doing it. That's what you do.
That's right. That's right. And it's about, I recently had an oracle, a public oracle on my YouTube channel where I was in medicine ceremony. And what I received was, well, all this torment stuff that we're going through is fourth dimensional.
Yes.
So we're actually not even in the third dimension. Yes, we are, but we're actually kind of in the fourth dimension with all of this waviness of negativity. We're trying to move to the fifth dimension. And a lot of talk has been going on about there being the bifurcation of the worlds or the trifurcation of the worlds. And some people are going to be all the way over here. Some people are going to be all the way over here. Well, what I received is actually it's about the simultaneity of the worlds that we're creating. So people can be in their fourth dimensional misery if that's how they're learning, and you kind of can't take people's lessons away from them. But what you can do is you can start popping up into fifth dimension and have your existence pod over here. Now you're still existing with people in fourth dimension. You're still compassionately dealing with their troubles and doing what you can to be helpful. You're not trying to change their minds or tell them to do something different or here, come over to the light. You're just doing whatever's needed, knowing that they'll awaken as they need to. Meanwhile, you can have a totally different experience of reality.
Yes, and like you're saying in your book, people can literally live in different dimensions, in different realities simultaneously on the earth plane. And like you said, that's okay. That's okay. And if you feel compelled to be in a leadership role to spread that light, do that. But also you could just be that as well.
That's right. That's right. And as we're opening our consciousness and going more into this fifth dimensional or Lemurian or New Earth, yes, we're going to be challenged with all the voices of the fourth dimension and all these scary things that seem to be maybe going to be happening. But you want to remember that a lot of it is illusory.
Yes.
We just went through 4 years of illusion.
Total illusion.
Okay. We have to realize that all the scary ooga booga at times did not manifest. Now, for some people, they really went into that thing and there was all sorts of death and this and that. And for those of us who were like, what are you talking about? I don't know anyone who died. What are you saying? You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay.
Different realities, totally different realities that were totally manufactured.
And then we're fighting. So like those of us who are going into the Lemurian reality, we need to realize that there's still going to be things that want to pull us down by the ankles. We're still going to get our cages rattled. We're still going to be watching people suffering. But we have to remember that, a lot of it is illusion. And a lot of it is media play and all this.
Absolutely. And we don't really know what's happening. We're just getting this information from these sources. Unless we're really experiencing it or know someone that's directly there, it's hard to tell these days what's actually happening in the world. But I do know that we have intuitive discernment, and we have a consciousness that can filter out lies and bad information when you develop yourself enough that you can do that.
That's right. And when you start realizing that you're your own president.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So then you can get out of that little game. You can get out of that little divisive argumentation game, and you can be really focusing on how you're the president of your own country, which is you.
Right.
And what do you need to do this? And what do you need to walk in the world in a better way, even while all of these shenanigans are going on and all this drama?
Right. Exactly. Essentially, you're saying just like be the Jesus of your own life, realize that you're the hero person in your illusionary story, your movie, and just be the best embodiment of light that you can. And also, like you said, there's some layer of this, which kind of makes sense when you think about the atrocities and various things that happen in this dimension. There's some layer of this where this is a complete illusion. Like you step out of it and you go, wow, that was like the holodeck on Star Trek or some just total holographic projection. Now, that doesn't take away from the karmic implications and the actions that take place here and the soul things that happen here. But there's some layer of this that is an illusion. And also, as humans, when we raise our vibration, when we really truly kicking up an octave, how we define that yin and yang will change. When we're in a different octave, what we just defined as the highest point is now the lowest point, and the highest point is way up there. So those universal laws can be in place, but when we utilize other universal laws, such as raising our vibration to a new octave, then different things happen, and we can hit that Lemurian reality.
Yeah, completely. You start having different things take place, like you're saying. Different things can happen. You can have a totally different experience suddenly. And, I wanted to share something on the personal level,
yes,
right?
Please.
So I mentioned that a few weeks ago, I had a very intensive medicine journey experience. And I was able to break through the greatest barrier in my own lifetime, which was the separation from my mother when I was 10 years old. She died when I was 10. She had lupus, and I've never felt her around me, ever. And I've always been worried about her and what happened. Well, I met this woman who's a skilled psychopomp shaman who was able to bring me into the realms where she was. And we invoked all these helpers. We invoked Mother Mary and the Magdalene and all of this. And I was able to, it was a little bit of a scary passage, but I went through to the realm of the other world where these ancestors are and the Marys are and so forth. And I was able to receive a tremendous healing from Mother Mary because she held me, and I had the reality experience of feeling filled and one with the divine for like the first time in my life.
Wow.
Now that was a huge healing. Thank you, Mother Mary. And as that was happening, I was able to release my mother like from her symbiotic stasis with me so that she could go on and really experience her full true healing. And since then, I've felt her presence and like I'm not alone in the world anymore. And of course, Mother Mary is there with me. But when you also pop into that dimensional realm, you also see the perfection of everything.
Right.
And so it's like, oh, wow, as crappy as that was, I would never have found Mother Mary and written these books and been, a light for other people if I hadn't gone through all this suffering. And, granted, yes, we're trying to move out of a planet of suffering into a planet of learning through joy. But these are the steps we are taking along the way. But just realizing the total perfection in everything brought me a great peace. And it allowed me to be able to stop being the Amazon warrior as much, and turn that into being the light warrior, the love warrior, knowing that everything is perfect. So I can kind of relax and I can just stay in this love state and be radiating this love and change things from that way instead of through my anger, my resentment, this and that. So it was forgiving the personal people in my own life, first of all, that can then lead to that larger forgiveness of these other layers of beings.
And isn't that amazing? After all these years, you're still experiencing growth and having these experiences that are raising you up.
Yeah, it's really quite amazing because we're talking 52 years of waiting on that one. Right. 52 years of Earth time before I was able to get to the resources that I needed for this experience.
And then you're saying also that there was an aspect of your mother that was waiting for you to have that experience so she could move on to her further learning and journeys.
That's right. Be released.
Wow.
And for us both to have a really deep healing. And
oh, go ahead.
What, of course, Jake, what is my mother's name?
Mary.
My mother's name is Marie Dolores, which means Mary of the Sorrows. And I write about that in the Secret Life of Mother Mary. But the book is continuing to be written, because I was at one stage when the book was written. Now I'm at another stage. So we're, who knows what these books are going to be in the future.
Well, and here's the thing. When you get to those other stages, all we're really saying is that you have now developed yourself to access new information that was always there. It was just outside of your awareness. You raised your awareness. You opened your awareness. Now, look, there's all that new information and you can keep doing that. And all of us can keep doing that as humans. There's infinite amount of information there to unlock.
Yeah. And it really takes the courage to look at your own suffering and pain and being willing to go through it, the gauntlet of it, and call in these masters, several of whom are called Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Jesus, and let them help you to experience the healing that you need.
Right. Because they are, like you said, a support group, an ethereal, energetic support group of the most powerful energies in the universe.
That's right.
Which is huge.
What an amazing thing to really feel them as real.
Right.
Like I could kind of go in and out prior to this, my meditations, synchronicities, yes, miracle healings and this and that. But to actually be in a state of consciousness where I was feeling their presence, wow, that was amazing.
I'm sure. And like you said, it's still happening. There's still more and there's still more to unlock. There's a couple of things I really want to ask you about. I feel like this interview could go on forever, but there's a couple key things I wanted to ask you about. Can you tell me, I really want to know about this. Can you tell me what happened with Jesus and Mary and Joseph when they were in Egypt? Now, this is supposedly the years where there isn't any information about Jesus's life, but based on your research and intuition and channeling, what happened during that Egyptian time?
All right, I'm going to have to tune in. Marguerite would need a few more drugs to be able to answer that question. All right. And I mean, that would be a fun thing. I love to ask these questions and work with Lady Cannabis and see what comes up. But let me just tune in. So you're saying Blessed Mother Mary, Joseph, her partner, and Jesus during the Egyptian years?
Yes.
What I get is that they were learning. They were just continuing to learn, because even though they came here as very high beings, they had to acquire the codes and the information. So Jesus, it wasn't like, hey, I'm here, I'm perfect, da-da-da. In fact, are you aware that there's a whole gospel about Jesus as being quite the little Lord Fauntleroy hellion?
Yes, as a child, doing various things, including striking someone down, bring him back to life after the parents complained, like a lot of different things.
Yeah, he was like, I got powers and you're being a pain in the ass. So and I'll tell you about the Alpha and the Omega, Rabbi, da-da-da-da-da. And the rabbi's like stunned. Oh my God, how does this kid know that? Besides which, he's a little bit uppity. So, they were continuing to learn. It's not a one and done thing. It's like the Dalai Lama, right? They have to find him, then they have to retrain him, help him reaccess his memories, all this and that. So what I get is that these people were continually learning in any way they could. They had to meet other sages who had codes and knowledge. They had to keep up their daily practices. They had to be exposed to certain power spots, energies, and so forth. So that's what I get about them being in Egypt. There was still really strong Atlanto-Lemurian energy that was there for them to codely, open them. That's what I'm getting in the moment as I think about that question, which I really have never thought about. Okay.
Really?
So what do you think about that, Jake?
Wow. Well, I'm glad we could tune into that together. To me, it's huge because I've heard, he was trained in Egyptian mystery school knowledge. Where they supposedly lived historically was 12 miles from a Buddhist temple. There was just all of this influence and energy from all of these cultures in Egypt, which was this epicenter of this really high frequency at the time.
It was a mecca. And there's a really great book that Intertraditions has put out. It's back to 2007 now, Mysteries of the Bride Chamber by Victoria Lepage. William Henry turned me onto that book. If you want to get the lowdown on what was really going on at, before, during, and after the time of Jesus with these mystery traditions in the Hebrew tradition, in the Egyptian tradition, in the Greek, what we might call Gnostic, that's an excellent resource.
Wow, I'm definitely going to check that book out. So before we talk about your school, because I want to know everything about the Seven Sisters Mystery School, I got one more question. So essentially, Jesus was a human being. He had a human body. Did he take on the Christ consciousness through learning and understanding? Or from your perspective, was he destined to always activate the Christ consciousness? It was just a matter of unfoldment.
Kind of both and. All right.
Okay.
So let me lay that out. But what I'd say is, I am of the belief that Jesus and these sacred people walk the planet.
Me too.
Not everyone might be, and that's fine. You take whatever medicine works for you. So we're not going to argue about the timelines, the histories, the realities. We're going with what resonates for us and what is the medicine for us. How is that helping us be better people, heal, and help others? Okay. But I do believe they walk the planet. I do hold that. And so what I know about the divine birth process is that from this research and putting my intuition with it is that, again, it's like the Dalai Lama. The child is born. The child has all these potentials. And the child needs training. Mother Mary was trained from infancy into 12 or 16 years old when she conceived Jesus and gave birth to him. Jesus was trained. All of them have to be trained. So they are training from within their family. Mother Mary did a lot of that training for Jesus. And they, again, had to find some of the sadhus and in Egypt, and there's a whole India story, right, about going to the saints and things like that to get the information, the Shakti pot, the touch, the energies. John the Baptist was helped Jesus awaken. Okay. And so, because John the Baptist was also a divinely born child, right? So they're all sort of picking each other up. They're all helping each other along, and they're drawing on the resources that they need to fully activate the full avatar energy within them. And then if they have the right kind of death passage, they will ascend to full godhood. So John the Baptist didn't quite make it that because he was ignominiously killed. He was not killed in a ritual way. There was no one working rituals for him when he was beheaded. So he's got some more to go. Jesus just about made it. He did go through the ritual sacrifice of the king, but it was so brutal that, Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene had to work it to help him not be completely annihilated. Mother Mary, as I discuss in The Secret Life of Mother Mary, achieved a full ascension. And it's described in the biographies of her and so forth. All the little stages and big stages that she went through, going through the bardo, this and that, until she was like one with the light. So all these things are describing pathways that are not just for the divinely born avatars, but are pathways for all of us. We just have to keep getting busy with our healing, with our practices, calling on these masters as teachers and being teachers to each other and finding, who's on the planet, who knows what, and let them touch me. Okay.
Wow. That's huge, because that's kind of where people are at. You're noticing the acceleration of this knowledge, this type of teaching, and also you're teaching people with the Seven Sisters Mystery School. Tell me very briefly how you founded this and what this school is about.
I founded it in 2012 with the help of a coach who helped me sort of weave together, parlay all of my intellectual and spiritual leanings into a place where I could teach what I wanted and work one-on-one and in groups with people for our healing, for our ascension, and so forth. And because I was aware of the Seven Sisters at the time and their import with the world, and there being 7 star mothers, and there being so much more to that story, in the shower one day when I thought, what am I going to name my enterprise? It was like, Seven Sisters Mystery School. And they have been the guiding light, as it turns out. Just when I think, I'm done with the Pleiades, no, they're coming back. So, I offer many courses, trainings like the forthcoming Mary and Magdalene Priestess training. I have online on-demand courses about Mary Magdalene and Jesus and many other things, the fairies and so forth, divine birth. I offer in-person and online cacao ceremonies. I've got a retreat coming up in New York State in October at the Abode of the Message. So you just have to go to sevensistersmysteryschool.com. I do one-on-one readings with people and mentoring them for becoming cacao priests and priestesses and more.
Wow, that's a lot of different roles you're taking on there. We just did recently a whole episode on Mama Cacao and the energy behind cacao. I didn't realize it was revered in the same way as ayahuasca in these indigenous cultures. It's
oh my God,
very powerful.
Well, she's the whole Mary energy. It's all about love with cacao and awakening.
Oh my goodness, you're now connecting those.
So the retreat we're doing is a fall into the bliss of love with the Marys and Mama Cacao.
Whoa!
Yeah. 3.5 days, the Indigenous Peoples Weekend, we're doing it.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, it's like everything's coming together. It's all weaving together. But
that's it.
That mystery school knowledge related to Mary and Mother Mary, do you teach people that as well?
Yes, that's going to be a part of the Mary and Magdalene Priestess training. I'm going to be culling everything I know to help people have the intellectual knowing and then go through experiences of initiation and inner workings to raise their vibration up to become a walking Mary and a walking Magdalene, understand what that means and what that means specifically for each person, because it's different for each person.
Right, wherever their consciousness is at. And I just like to point out really quick that we love Mother Mary, we love the divine feminine, but there's also a divine masculine. It's just the divine masculine, like you said, God hijacked. They lost something in the patriarchalness, but there is a divinity there that's waiting to be cleared up, where that energy there, and the divine feminine, that energy is ascending to help us with that process, in addition to re-empowering all women all around the world.
Absolutely. This is a global healing of all people.
Yes.
We are deeply in that process now.
Wow. Well, this is incredible. We've had such an incredible episode. Oh my God. I know we could talk about a lot, but time is running out. It does run out at some time. That fourth dimension does rear its head, but we've had such an incredible interview. Again, I want to tell people where to find you. sevensistersmysteryschool.com. You can go there. There's all kinds of information. You can figure out what's going on with the courses, the book that we're talking about, which gets my highest recommendation. I absolutely love this book, The Secret Life of Mother Mary, Divine Feminine Power for Personal Healing and Planetary Awakening. And she has other books, The Cult of Divine Birth in Ancient Greece, The Virgin Mother Goddesses of Antiquity, The Mystery Tradition of Miraculous Conception. So those other books are available. And would you say, lastly, before we go, that the goal is activating divinity within ourselves? We learn these teachings, we tap into this information, we tap into these entities, these energies, but the end game, the ultimate goal, is just returning to our true selves by activating that divinity.
Absolutely. That is what I'm all about and what this work is all about.
Well, incredible episode. Thank you so much, Marguerite, for being here.
Jake, you're welcome. I thank you for a great interview also.
Yeah, we had an incredible rapport. I loved it.
Thanks a lot. And blessings to everybody listening. I hope this helps us all, lift our wings.
I think it will. And this is going out all over the world. And Marguerite, please hold through the outro music. And everyone, again, check out the website, check out the book. If you're a goddess listening to this, you're a woman, you're feeling that Mother Mary energy, please look into this, take the deep dive. There's something calling you to that. And men, you're feeling it as well. Learn more about this. Let's balance these energies as we move into a new earth. And of course, we will see you next week, midnight on Earth.